Okay, so that was pretty cool. The smell inside was like a really sweet, again, like that kind of sugar cane, molasses smell, very caramelized. Super cool to see that. And as you can see, our tour guide is unbelievably knowledgeable and just ready for any question you could want to ask. So really interesting. There'll be more in the future on why I asked about cane sugar, very particular to places like Martinique and some of the French islands in the Caribbean where they produce rum agricole, so R-H-U-M agricole, got a bit of like a funk to it. And interesting because that is not the end process to get to molasses. It's like one step or two above. So that's why it was interesting to hear why they didn't stop there, and that the answer was it's too costly. You'd think the further you have to process something, the more the cost it will be. But I guess back then, like he said, that was actually a much more costly factor. So really awesome. So far, loving it. But I'm going to keep quiet now.
Alrighty, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and venture back to the main area of Casa Bacardi. Because little by little, we're gonna transition over to our Founders Lounge, where we of course have final completed rum, Bacardi rum. We're gonna go ahead and taste it, get to know them a little bit better, but also get to know the company a lot better as well. Now, when we talk about Bacardi today, guys, as I mentioned before, we have 3 distilleries: Puerto Rico, Mexico, and India. And now, aside from that, we also have different brands. As the company has been expanding, our brand portfolio has been growing as well. So guys, when we talk about Bacardi internationally, we now have to include, well, Angel's Envy, Tours, Aberfeldy. We got Aristotle Vodka, Grey Goose Vodka, Patron, Cazadores, Corso Tequila, Bombay Sapphire, Oxley London Dry Gin, Saint Germain, Martini and Rossi. Guys, I can continue the rest of the time that we have left naming different brands. But just a little example, letting you know that Bacardi is really all around the world. And here at Casa Bacardi, Puerto Rico, we are highly committed, well, to giving you that full experience. So soon, mi gente, we're gonna have our entire brand portfolio right here with us at Casa Bacardi. So if you wanna go ahead and enjoy some vodka with us, some whiskey with us, some gin, tequila, mezcal, anything you might want, well, Casa Bacardi is gonna be that destination for you. Now, as we're moving away from the blending facility to our right hand side, guys, we're gonna have an area, or the area where we're gonna go ahead and treat the barrels with steam and hot water. Once they arrive, we're gonna test them, make sure they don't have any leakages, any openings around the barrels, and then we're gonna, in that area right there with those hoses, we're gonna clean them. Steam and hot water is going to be applied to take any whiskey flavor left inside, and then after that cleaning process has been completed, we're going to add water, 45 gallons to be more exact of water, and leave them where they're standing so they can stretch out, guys, so they can begin their aging process. But here we have a really fantastic view. I'm going to move a little bit to further right over here. Now, behind that facility, guys, you're going to be seeing those towers right there. Those are the distillation towers, or column stills, where we produce our redistillate, or our light or neutral alcoholic base of rum. As I mentioned before, it's going to be heated up. It's going to be distilled 5 times. So we have 5 towers right there. Through each of those towers, we have, of course, a higher degree of temperature, meaning that we're going to lose flavors from that base each time it passes through one of those towers. And by the end, we're going to have a base with no flavors whatsoever, but the highest number of alcohol at 94.75%. Now, I'm going to make a quick little turnaround right over here, because behind this building, we have our other tower. And we, of course, need to see it and also get the nice view of our beautiful Cathedral of Rum, the building that we have right here in front of us. But we're trying to implement a new processes for that. So I would have to ask if we already started with the new process, which one it is. I will not know. The blenders over there are quite secretive with what they do and how they do it. So little by little, we get the information as they are sure it is working for us. Yes, the water is from a pure aquifer that we have right over here. It comes from the town of Cataño, and we of course part of it we reuse it. You know, the ones that we use for washing our hands, the fountain of water that's going to be treated in the facility and then repurposed again for the facility as well. Same thing goes for the waste that we produce over here. It's going to be passed over to right there. Those big dark brown tanks that we have at the end, those are tanks of anaerobic bacteria. The waste that we produce over here at Casa Bacardi is going to be treated in those tanks, going to be turning into methane, and then under pressure that methane is going to be combined with liquid petroleum, which is going to be the area of those two towers that we have over to our right hand side, our CHP treatment plants. Now, under those high pressures combined with liquid petroleum, we're now powering around 73, if I'm not mistaken, percent of the energy consumed right by us right at this moment. That is partly why the windmills are completely shut off. Those are basically our little backup generators, only producing around 10 to 12% of the energy that we're gonna need. So right now, those two towers, the CHP treatment plant, is where we go ahead and power most of Bacardi as of this moment. So the four, actually 5 towers, but right now you can only see the 4 towers of the redistillate base of rum, and then behind this building, the Cathedral of Rum, or La Catedral del Rum, we have that single distillation tower. So how do they work, guys? Super simple. You see that little tube feeding from the top right there? That little tube by pressure is gonna go ahead and pass the beer, the distiller's beer. And inside of those towers, what we have are plates of stainless steel that are perforated. So that beer is gonna trickle down, heat up, and by that same pressure, and now it turning into vapor, it's going to be pushed down, where it's going to condense, turn into a liquid, but then as it heats another plate, it's going to heat up again, turn into a vapor again. It's going to make that journey at around 6 times, if I'm not mistaken, but inside of the tower, and the temperature is going to be quite controlled. So again, we're not going to lose flavors, we're going to be able to hold to them, preserve them for a lot longer, but of course the proof of alcohol is going to go ahead and rise to that amount of 84 to 86%. For the other one, each of the towers have such a high temperature that each time we pass it through the one, the flavors are going to be gone little by little, and by the end, completely gone for a neutral, purely alcoholic base of rum. Now, this very beautiful Art Deco design building that we have coming up to our right hand side is the first building established here at Casa Bacardi, Puerto Rico, back in 1958, mi gente. With a beautiful name of the Cathedral of Rum, or La Catedral del Rum. Here we have the building that houses our main ingredient, the Bacardi yeast, a very specific strain of yeast surviving today right here at the company, but discovered back in Santiago de Cuba by the main man himself, Don Facundo Bacardi Maso, right here outside of the Cathedral of Rum. Now that yeast is kept here in the 4th floor of this building behind 3 security doors. Right now only 5 people have access to that room, and that yeast is going to be cultivated once every 2 years from here, being shipped over to Mexico and India as well, for them to be able to produce their batch of Bacardi rum. Guys, you can basically think of this as our version of the Coca-Cola secret formula, so much so that again, it is our most guarded, most prized asset. Something happens to that yeast, well guys, that'll be very, very bad news over here to Bacardi. So that yeast, of course, being combined with sugarcane molasses. Puerto Rico, back in before the 1900s, guys, was a major producer of sugarcane and sugarcane molasses as well. This beautiful relic that we have right over here was the iconic train of the South, or El Tren del Sur, that used to transport sugarcane molasses all across the south side of the island to places like Ponce, my hometown of Guayama, Puerto Rico, and Arroyo as well. Now, sugarcane molasses, guys, for those of you who don't know, it's a byproduct that you get after you have extracted most of the pure natural juices coming directly from the sugarcane plant. Now, that sugarcane molasses is very thick, smells very sweet, but it tastes quite strong, and it's not going to be quite enjoyable, okay? So, what are we going to do? Since it's so thick, all the yeast is not able to consume it in its natural state. So that is where our third ingredient, water, comes into play. We're gonna go ahead and dissolve the sugarcane molasses in water. That way, loosen it up, making it easier for the yeast to consume it. And once we have that process completed and the yeast has been already cultivated, well, right here to our right hand side, we kickstart the process of making alcohol or rum possible in the fermentation process. So those light brown tanks are the fermentation tanks, the holding tanks, where we're gonna have 20 of them right here, each of them working at 2 at a time, every 24 to 48 hours. That's the amount of time that it takes for the yeast to consume all the sugar found in the sugarcane molasses, okay? From here, we're gonna get a first initial wash, known or referred to as distiller's beer. With only 8 to 10% of alcohol by volume, that beer is gonna smell quite sweet, quite sugary to be more exact, but of course not for consuming, highly toxic. as the name suggests, that they're going to be used purely for distillation process. Okay, now at the bottom level, guys, we have that bamboo looking tree, not a bamboo, mi gente, of course, that being the sugarcane or la caña de azúcar. As I mentioned in the beginning, guys, when it comes to making rums, you gotta go ahead and source fermentable sugars coming directly from this plant right here and from this plant only, okay? Now, there's a little side effect that happens when we go ahead and produce rum, or to be more specific, when you produce alcohol in such a concentrated area. And that is a little black moss forming all around the palm trees that we have here surrounding this area. That black moss being whiskey fungus, guys, or a fungus that thrives in the presence of alcohol. Since the fermentation tanks are going to be the first initial process of making alcohol, you're going to be seeing that the palm trees surrounding this area are going to show the most sign of the whiskey fungus. But guys, the little gray tube, the scrubber right there, is presenting sign of the whiskey fungus on top. And if you go ahead and peek through the facility, you might be able to notice the whiskey fungus quite literally everywhere around the facility. Now, lucky for us, most of the whiskey fungus is going to be carried away by the sea breeze that we have surrounding our facility. But for example, people at Lynchburg, Tennessee do not have that luck, man. The whiskey fungus right there is quite uncontrolled. It's been quite a nightmare for the residents of Lynchburg, Tennessee. That is why, if I'm not mistaken, as of this moment, Jack Daniels finds itself in a little legal battle, in a little action lawsuit, because the residents are fed up with a whiskey fungus and they're trying to see what they can do about it, okay? But again, for us, it's not going to affect the rum, it's not going to affect us, it's not going to affect the vegetation. Again, as I referred to it, a little side effect in the production of alcohol, more so if you are producing so much in just one concentrated area. But with that said, mi gente, my beautiful people, welcome to the visitor center. Please begin onboarding through the right hand side very carefully, mind your step. Now this time, please keep an eye out for all your belongings, because this trolley right over here will be used for another upcoming tour, okay? Welcome to the visitor center, mi gente, Casa Bacardi. We have quite a beautiful view of most of the facility, of course. But here we have a closer look to the main star, the main ingredient when it comes to making rum responsible, guys. Saccharum or fish rum, or la caña de azúcar, the sugarcane plant, guys. Not from the Caribbean, not from Puerto Rico, actually from New Guinea. Little by little migrated over to South Asia. From there, the English and Spanish brought it over to the New World. To be more specific, our next door neighbor of the Dominican Republic was one of the first islands, or sectors where sugarcane was planted, and of course being brought forward a sort of gold rush over here for Puerto Rico. It's very sought after, not only Puerto Rico, excuse me, the Caribbean, guys. It was very sought after. If you had any big sugarcane plantation, you were basically set for life. You're going to be a very rich person right here. Little by little in the 1600s, we have this plant, or the sugarcane molasses of this plant, being fermented by yeast, and what was left over being discovered by the slaves working at St. Nevis, guys. And little by little, they turned that into what we know today as rum. So this one, of course, presenting also signs of the whiskey fungus. There's going to be sugar in here. Sugar is going to be fermented, and alcohol is going to be found right here. So the whiskey fungus taking a hold of that alcohol right over here. So follow me over this way, guys. My near step right over here. Ladies' bathroom in this area. And this bathroom is going to be at the middle of the hallway, okay? Yeah, go ahead, sir, of course.
Okay, gentlemen's bathroom right over here, ladies' bathroom at the end to the left, okay? If you guys are ready, follow me over this way.